Hello, I'm Mike Perrian. I'm the CTO with Multitech Systems. Today we're going to talk about the digital divide, particularly in education, and how CBRS and private LTE have helped close that gap. The pandemic has been a real eye-opener in terms of how important agility and resilience are in any business, whether we're navigating supply chain issues, uh, transportation glitches, staffing shortages, or we're trying to educate our children during a global pandemic. This slide illustrates some of the challenges our education system has faced in the last couple of years. This slide is taken a week ago, and it's updated every day. It illustrates all the school districts across the US and their plan on whether they're going back to in-person education, hybrid, or remote after the holiday break. And it changes every day. And after 20 years or so of talking about the digital divide as a problem, mostly in political circles, the global pandemic came and it really highlighted what a big problem we have. As the largest economy in the world, we still have 40% of our students without broadband access at home. So when we sent everybody home for home education, remote learning, it created a huge divide in our system. Nothing, a crisis can really motivate some change. So while we've been talking about the digital divide for more than a decade, the crisis of the global pandemic has enabled the government to throw a lot of funding at this problem. So in 2021, $7 billion got allocated to helping close that digital divide, particularly for education, to be able to do remote learning. And the real objective here is to close the gap between the resources available in the classroom and at home. So this new technology, CBRS, or private LTE, really launched just in time to address this. So in 2019, private LTE became a possibility. The spectrum opened up for general access. And what this enabled is private networks to be deployed in hard-to-reach areas, underserved markets, rural areas. So now we could put cellular connectivity through a private network to enable students in remote learning in hard-to-reach locations. And really key to this technology is the cost-effective, how efficient it is from a cost perspective. So it can reduce the OpEx cost for a school system by 66 to 75%. It's because essentially they're becoming their own network operator. So there are no monthly service fees for that data. It's also hugely scalable. So they're deploying their own, essentially kind of network in a box solution to deploy their own wireless network to reach their own communities, to reach their students. They can cover broad areas by deploying additional antennas. And on top of that, it's a highly secure network. It's a private network. So one thing that they can do in the education field is they no longer have to. We're not just giving students access to the general internet. This is the school's internet. This is the resources that they want to provide access to. So providing another degree of safety and security for their students. So at Multitech, we were very early to market with CBRS end user products to help capture the ability of these networks. So some of the use cases that we saw come up in the education market very quickly at the front end of the pandemic were the ability to deploy mobile Wi-Fi hotspots. So in an underserved area, this could mean they're putting a gateway in a school bus and parking it in a parking lot, and that gateway has a CBRS backhaul, so there's no monthly charges for that data on the backhaul side, and they could provide Wi-Fi access to 100 students or more in that location. Or schools are also deploying in-home Wi-Fi capabilities. So put a Wi-Fi access point, assign that to a student or a family, and that Wi-Fi access point connects over the CBRS private LTE network to the school's private network. And also just to directly enable all those laptops and Chromebooks and things that got sent home with the students for remote learning and add CBRS backhaul connectivity to those specific devices. So at Multitech, we had launched 3 specific products to address this need at the front end of the pandemic. The first was the Wi-Fi gateway with CBRS backhaul. This could handle service to 100 different clients at a time, or that home Wi-Fi CBRS backhaul access point. So this a family with multiple students in the same dwelling can now deploy this just the same way you would with a Wi-Fi router, but this one goes over the CBRS backhaul through the school's network, giving those students access just the same way as if they're sitting on site in the IT environment of the school itself. Or finally, a USB dongle, so enabling those laptops and those tablets with CBRS connectivity directly on a one device per device. So at Multitech, we saw very rapid growth in CBRS being adopted for education, remote learning. But this isn't the only application for CBRS. It's just one that really got fast forwarded by the tragedy of the pandemic. There are many applications for CBRS in industry as well. So some of those drivers for CBRS and closing that divide are, anybody that has a high density of assets that they would love to have connected over a network, typically mobile type assets, but the cost would just be too high to pay for additional data plans on a per device basis. So sometimes that's just the efficiency, the cost efficiency of reaching a wide number of devices. In other cases, it's the security of the network. So you're now on your own private wireless, private cellular network. So you can have complete control of the devices on that, completely manage the capabilities of that network, and keep that data within your own network as you desire. And another real driver is performance. So now with this private cellular network, unlike the public spectrum, you have complete control of everything on that network. You can control service levels, quality of service. You can get extremely high throughput, you can get very low latency, and very high determinism. And when you can do those sorts of things, you open up new applications in industry that were previously reserved for only wired connections. So now in warehouse environments, manufacturing environments, automatic guided vehicles, robotics, all the things that we would have been fearful to use a wireless connection for before because of worries about latencies and determinism and such. Now all of a sudden we can go to a wireless connection, dramatically lowering the labor to install these devices, and also providing much more agility and flexibility in installation where we don't have to rewire an entire facility. So here's another view of different settings where CBRS is forecasted to be adopted in a fairly rapid fashion. Summarizing on the right side there, it breaks down to about a third of industrial settings. This can be utilities, oil and gas, manufacturing. Healthcare and hospitality is a big deal. You can imagine healthcare settings, privacy of networks, the ability to manage networks, to put mission-critical assets onto a wireless network in a safe and robust way. Retail and office space, CBRS is going to change the face of how we do network management. Wi-Fi is not going away. This is supplementing Wi-Fi and enabling new use cases on top of that, so allowing us to deploy business-critical and mission-critical assets over wireless. So CBRS and private LTE really is helping close not only the digital divide, but it's accelerating digital transformation. It's one of those tools on our belt that is really becoming mature and coming of age, and we're going to see rapid deployments for each of those reasons. Removing wires, lowering cost of installation, lowering cost of maintenance, increasing agility, the ability to sustainability, and bringing higher performance to things that, again, were only reserved for copper connections or fiber connections in the past. Private LTE and private cellular now takes us in that direction. And it's also a stepping stone towards 5G technologies. Now, granted, you'll need to replace these radios. You can't just replace you can't just do a software upgrade of a private LTE radio up into a 5G. But the architecture and the whole ecosystem stays very much the same of whether you're using private networks over CBRS on LTE technologies or you're doing it under 5G technology. So at Multitech, we've been in this wireless game for quite some time. We have a 50-year history as a designer, manufacturer of wireless, specializing in public and private networks, both for high bandwidth things like cellular, LTE, and into 5G, as well as private networks for sensing and low power assets as well. And that wraps up my presentation today. Again, my name is Mike Perrin with Multitech. Please reach out to us if you'd like to learn more about CBRS and private LTE.